The Silent Teacher. It was autumn in a quiet American town. The streets were littered with golden leaves, the sky painted in shades of gray, and the wind carried a chilly reminder that winter was near. Inside the old red brick high school, the bell rang and the hallways filled with laughter, footsteps, and the careless energy of youth. But at the far end of the building, in a small classroom tucked away like a secret, silence ruled. This was the classroom of Mrs. Elaine Roberts, known by everyone as the Silent Teacher. Elaine was in her mid-50s. She couldn't speak, and she couldn't hear. For most people, that would have been a curse, but for her, it was a way of life. She taught with her eyes, her hands, and the unspoken strength of her presence. Her students didn't just learn literature from her, they learned patience, empathy, and how to listen without words. A new student. That fall, a new student joined the school. His name was Daniel Kahn, a 17-year-old boy whose family had recently moved from New Jersey. His parents were immigrants from Pakistan. His father worked endless night shifts at a gas station, and his mother stitched clothes at home to help make ends meet. Daniel carried the weight of his family's struggles on his shoulders. He was smart, yes, but in this town, his accent, his brown skin, and his quiet demeanor made him an outsider. The other kids rarely included him in their groups. On the basketball court, he was good, but not good enough to be accepted by those who laughed at where he came from. Inside, Daniel burned with frustration. He wanted to belong. He wanted someone to see him for who he really was. And then Mrs. Roberts saw him. The first lesson. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. Daniel was sitting in the back row of Mrs. Roberts' class, his hood pulled over his head, trying to stay invisible. The lesson was about poetry. Mrs. Roberts wrote a few lines of Robert Frost on the board. She signed the words with her hands, and the students copied them down. She asked the class a question by writing it on the board: "What does this poem mean to you?" No one answered. The silence stretched. Daniel, almost by accident, whispered, "It's about choices, about walking a road nobody else does." His accent slipped through, and a couple of kids chuckled. Daniel's face burned. He wanted to sink into the chair. But then it happened. Mrs. Roberts turned to him, her eyes sharp, almost glowing. She walked slowly to his desk, knelt down, and looked straight into his eyes. She smiled. With her hands, she signed something. Daniel didn't understand. She quickly wrote on his notebook, "Your voice matters." That was the first time in months that Daniel felt seen. Silent lessons. Weeks passed, and Daniel started watching Mrs. Roberts more closely. She had a way of commanding the class without saying a word. When students acted out, she didn't raise her voice, she simply looked at them with those calm, unwavering eyes, and they stopped. She used silence like a weapon, like an art. For Daniel, who was drowning in noise, the noise of rejection, the noise of his parents' arguments at night, the noise of his own doubts, her silence was healing. One afternoon, after class, Daniel stayed behind. He finally asked the question that had been burning inside him, "Mrs. Roberts, how do you do it? How do you teach without speaking?" She took a deep breath and wrote slowly on the board, "The world listens when you stop shouting." Daniel never forgot those words. An unexpected twist. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late. Daniel had just finished helping his father at the gas station. On his way home, he stopped at the corner store. That's when he saw two older boys from his school, ones who often mocked him, stealing from the counter. The store clerk yelled, and in a panic, the boys shoved Daniel, dropping the stolen goods into his hands before running off. The clerk turned around, saw Daniel holding the items, and called the police. Within minutes, Daniel was in handcuffs. At the station, he tried to explain, but no one believed him. His accent, his background, his silence, they all worked against him. Even his father looked at him with disappointment. The school was notified. Rumors spread like wildfire. Daniel's a thief. Immigrant kid got caught. Daniel felt his world collapsing. The silent defender. The next day, when Daniel walked into school, heads turned, whispers followed. He kept his eyes low until he saw Mrs. Roberts waiting for him outside her classroom. Without a word, she motioned him inside. Daniel broke down. "They think I'm a criminal. No one's going to believe me." Mrs. Roberts walked to her desk, pulled out a small notebook, and scribbled something. She slid it to him. "I believe you." Daniel shook his head. "But what good is that? You can't even speak for me." Mrs. Roberts stared at him for a long moment. Then, she wrote again, "Sometimes the truth doesn't need a loud voice, it needs courage." The trial of silence. Days later, Daniel's case went to a small hearing at the school. The principal, teachers, and the clerk who accused him were all present. Everyone expected Daniel to be expelled. But Mrs. Roberts showed up. She walked into that room with her head high. She couldn't speak, but she brought something stronger, a video from the school's security cameras. Turns out, she had quietly requested footage from the night of the incident. The video clearly showed the two other boys dropping the stolen goods into Daniel's hands. The room went silent. The truth was undeniable. Daniel was free. The impact. Afterward, as the two of them stood outside the school, Daniel looked at her with tears in his eyes. "You saved me." "But, why?" Mrs. Roberts wrote her final words to him in that same notebook, "Because once, no one believed me either. I learned to fight in silence. Now, I teach so my students don't have to." Daniel finally understood, her silence wasn't weakness. It was strength, born of a lifetime of battles no one had seen. The ending. Years later, Daniel graduated with honors. He carried with him the lessons of the silent teacher. Whenever he faced injustice, he remembered her eyes, her words, "Your voice matters." He went on to become a lawyer defending those who, like him, had been judged by appearances, accents, or silence. At his first big case, standing in a crowded courtroom, Daniel thought of her. And though she was not there, he felt her presence calm, strong, unshaken. Because sometimes, the loudest teachers are the silent ones.